porches, and what this would do is allow for that encroachment. We heard from many neighbors that it's the porches that help to make the neighborhood character, and we'd like to assist them with that. So we have a couple of pictures just showing you porches in the neighborhood, and the residents in the community identified trying to encourage new development to have porches. We also felt, if you look at the slide on the left on this one, that porches help to soften some of the mass of a building by having that porch out in front. It's still a big structure, but at a staff level, we felt that encouraging porches would help with softening some of that. The next section, or this section, also deals with regulating the placement of garages and requires that all new front entry garages be either flush or set back from the front facade of the dwelling. And what we're trying to do is reduce the dominance of garages in terms of residential construction. So on the left are a couple of homes where the garages are at the setback. It's all you see. You don't see a front door. On the right is a more typical. The garage is flush or slightly recessed. And it clearly reduces the dominance of the feeling of the garage. A couple more examples at the top. You'll see in many of the older homes, the garage was built right into the home. On the left is a house where the garage is about 4 feet forward, showing you, while not as dominant as the first slide, it does sort of stick out more and has more of a prominence. On the bottom right is a house with a double garage, but it's equal with a house and not quite as prominent. Throughout the town, there are a lot of different types of garages. There are a lot of different types of setbacks. And what this would do is set a new pattern where they would have to be flush or set back. They could no longer be forward, as in the one on the left. In terms of cathedral floor, need to back up. So Section 3 in the ordinance deletes the existing borough regulation which allowed porches to encroach in the front yard. It was limited to a very small porch, and in the back section of the ordinance, what we're going to do now is, hopefully with the creation in Section 2 of those new design guidelines, we will add to those over the coming years as we develop more and more design solutions. Section 4 of the ordinance simply provides the standards for calculating the mean prevailing setback that we talked about in the beginning section. We're modifying it slightly from what the ordinance said. We're hopefully simplifying it from what it was before. Basically, just a couple of points. We'll now look at 500 feet in either direction on the same side of the street in terms of within the same zone, determining the prevailing front setback. It does allow, when you use the mean prevailing front setback, a plus or minus 2 feet, because we're not locking somebody into a build-to line, and we are providing a little bit of flexibility, realizing that it's an averaging number. So we're still giving them a plus or minus 2 feet in which to do that as well. And just a couple of pictures on that. So Section 5 amends the Borough Code for mean prevailing, and as you go through, you'll see we've deleted some and added some of this newer language in an attempt to hopefully simplify it, but to allow for mean prevailing. There are a couple of other calculations. On some of the smaller streets where you only have 2, 4, 3 homes, there is sometimes no mean prevailing, and we wanted to recognize that and allow for the homeowner to choose where the setback would be. If you have 3 homes and one is very close to the street and one is far back, rather than saying you have to be in the middle, now you have 3 properties that really don't have any kind of streetscape or sense, that the homeowner would match one or the other, again with a plus or minus 2 feet. And then finally, Section 6 deals with cathedral space and floor area, and what this does is modify the definition of floor area in the former township to include cathedral space. in the floor area being any space with a ceiling height of 12 feet or greater is counted twice. And Section 7 does the same thing for the borough. And just looking at the slides here, what we're trying to do is, under the current ordinance, if you look here where the cathedral space is, or down here, similarly, or over here on this new house under construction in here, there are some small pockets where we're adding to the bulk of the structure, the mass of the structure, and because it's whether it's 12 feet or 20 feet, it doesn't count as FAR, and what we want to do is capture that as if it were a floor, so that we're again looking at reducing some of that mass of the structure. That's a brief summary of the applications and what we were trying to do. I think it may be good if the board has questions, I'll try to answer them in any order that you want. I appreciate you letting me run through the presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Lee. Jenny?
I didn't notice this before, but for garages, for the ordinance about garages, is it clear, is the facade, is it clear that that's where the front door is? Because, the example that you showed, if there's a garage, couldn't you just say, oh, the front facade is the garage? Because, do we need to define that?
I don't know if we do. I think the only place where that comes in is if the garage is forward of the house, and then it's a side entry garage, so to speak. You've seen some of those designs.
But what about if, like those, the barn houses, where the whole facade is the garage?
Well, it does have a front door, so it's not...
But so facade is, it's just implied that it has the front door?
Yeah, I had exactly the same question that Jenny raised. When I looked at the picture of the two snout houses, I apologize for the term, it struck me that the language doesn't necessarily prevent that. What we are hoping to accomplish is to have the front door be either even with or in front of the garage door. So I guess I'm just thinking really of an editorial.
Could we just put
copy editing that would make that more specific?
The facade with the front door?
Yeah, I think if the board wants to recommend to council that there be something like that between now and the council meetings, staff can come up with some language that would address that, whether we define what the front facade is or just use the front door. I'm not certain exactly what, but I think if in our recommendation to council, if that's what you want to do, Derek's agreeing with me, you probably caught a good point.
Julie?
Yeah, I would argue that it's a little more complicated, I think, than just saying if the garage projects further out or not. And I'm thinking about some of the mid-century modern homes